Hey guys, I'm back at it once again with a brand new video for you, and welcome to part 2 of my special project, Dre's Top 10 Pound for Pound Formula 1 drivers based on the current 2013 roster list. This is part 2, 5 to 1. Yeah, again, rolls right off the tongue. Anyway, before I start, a couple of things I want to address. Number one, thanks to everybody who watched part 1. Over 700 views at the time of recording, nearly 100 likes and over 100 comments. These things really get people talking, and that's good. That's exactly what I wanted to see. And thank you to everybody who kept it classy in the comments as well, because this is the kind of thing where people could easily say, "Oh, you put Alonso in outside the top 5, you suck," or something along those lines. So thank you for keeping it classy. Much appreciated. Welcome to part 2, and now this is where things I know are going to get contentious and whatnot. I break down my personal top 5. Now, again, just want to repeat myself, this is just one guy's opinion. If you disagree with that, then that's fine. I totally understand. What worries me is that only one person in the last video correctly predicted my entire top 5 in the right order. Oh boy. I have some explaining to do, it seems. But without further ado, let's not wait any longer. Here is part 2 of my top 10 list, starting with number 5, Jenson Button. Yep, I have Jenson Button at 5, and the simple reason why is just, sadly, he's just not as good as the 4 guys who are above him. In my eyes, and what I think has been the case for the last season and a half now, is that there is an elite 4 in Formula 1 right now. 4 guys that I think can win any given race, regardless of the car they're in, as long as the car is half decent. There are 4 guys that can win any race. Jenson Button, I think, dropped out of that class the last couple of years. If this list was taken in 2011, I'd probably have Jenson Button at 2. Because, like, that 2011, I think, was up there with his best years as a driver besides his World Championship year in 2009, which, in my opinion, was slightly overrated. He won 6 of the first 7, then the rest of the field caught up, and then Button was average for the rest of the season. 2011 was the opposite way around. Started out okay, but turned out that after, the break and whatnot, after Germany, the second half of the year, every race he finished 4th place or higher with 7 podium appearances in the last 8 races of the year to eventually finish 2nd in the World Championship with 270 points. Jenson Button is the kind of guy that's very smooth and reliable, always puts in the best he can with whatever he's got. Unfortunately, the last 2 years he's not looked particularly strong, especially in the middle part of 2012, where he had that really bad run of form while Hamilton was winning. Button was limping away in places like 14th, 18th, 16th, etc., etc. Basically, I just don't think Button is up there with the 4 guys who are above him. So, again, Button's just kind of in a logjam. But he overall, I think, is a very solid driver and a great asset to any team due to his great attitude, very laid-back persona, and just generally great consistency and speed. Just a shame the 4 guys above him are just that little bit better. Okay, number 4 is Kimi Raikkonen. Now, before everybody starts disliking the video and sending me abuse, hear me out. This is a serious disclaimer. I had the toughest time on this list separating 2 to 4, because quite frankly, any of the 3 guys I mentioned in the next positions on this video could easily be 2, 3, or 4 in that order. I found these 3 guys incredibly hard to split, but I put Kimi Raikkonen at 4 for the simple reason of he's taken time off. That's going to hurt anybody. That's going to hurt anybody's position on the list like this, which is a pound-for-pound list, because the missing year puts doubt in people's minds. However, I think personally it's the kind of decision where the year off could actually benefit him as well. I've seen guys put Raikkonen as high as number 1, and I can understand why, because in one way he took the year off to do rallying and whatnot, came back and showed he still got elite driver pace. In other people's eyes, they could see that as a boost, as something to, use as a way of boosting his argument or making him sound like he's even better than what he actually is. And don't worry, I see that argument. I just literally could not put him any higher than the 2 or 3 guys that are above him on this list. It was really difficult for me to choose this, but I think his raw pace at his absolute best is, I think, a little bit lower than the 2 guys that are above him, or the 2 guys in this little block between, you know, this and the top 3 that's coming. So Raikkonen, in my eyes, just falls a little bit short. Not to mention his world title was 6 years ago now. That doesn't help his argument, but at least the guys above him have come closer since then. But I must admit, Raikkonen's bulletproof consistency and consistent high-level performances, not to mention his good work with a solid Lotus car, which isn't the best, gives him extra credit. So don't get me wrong, I don't think Raikkonen's bad. Far from it. Raikkonen is an elite driver and one of the best this sport's ever had. I just think the top 3 guys are either legends or future legends of this sport. That's all. Raikkonen is the man. It's just there are 3 slightly better men up top. So at 3, I have everybody's favourite Englishman, Lewis Hamilton. I had Hamilton above Raikkonen because I think, at their very best, I think Lewis Hamilton is a little bit better than Kimi Raikkonen. Like, I will say this, when it's all said and done, the biggest compliment I can give Lewis Hamilton is that if I had to pick any one driver to win me one single race, I would take Lewis Hamilton. And the reason why is because his upside and him at his best is better than any driver in the field and might be as good as any driver I've ever seen race this sport. His raw ability and raw speed is off the charts. Like, it is seriously up there with some of the greatest this sport has ever had. I think when he's on it, focused, he's in a good mental state, and he's in a solid car, Hamilton can win any race. And he's won over 20 in his relatively short F1 career so far. He has a world title he won in 2008. He probably would have won last year's world title if it wasn't for his inconsistent McLaren and just, quite frankly, bad luck. I know I don't like using luck in arguments, but the writing's on the wall. Second half of the season, he had 75 points taken off him due to either mechanical breakdowns or an angry German in a Force India. But overall, the reason that stopped me from putting Hamilton any higher than 3 is just his level of success hasn't been there. I think he's been unlucky to an extent because the McLaren has held him back in certain instances. But when it comes to raw pace, Hamilton and McLaren have got a combo that's worked hand in hand, and now he's starting to prove it wasn't just the car by going to Mercedes and looking competitive with that team too. So right now, Lewis Hamilton is one of the best, and quite frankly, I've seen people put him again as high as number 1, and I completely understand why. The kid is extremely talented. For me, number 3, but that's no disrespect at all. Sorry, Ferrari fans, your boy's at number 2. Fernando Alonso is my number 2. And the reason why he's my number 2 is that I was going back and forth about who to put at 2 between Alonso and Hamilton. But then there is no substitute for experience, for one. Number 2, Fernando Alonso has achieved so much in this sport. He is a 2-time world champion with Renault. I think he is a 2-time runner-up on top of that as well. With Ferrari and with other teams as well, is that Alonso has gone around the grounds, gone to multiple teams and won almost everywhere he's raced at since entering the top level of the sport. And he's a scrapper. That's why I like him so much. He is a guy that may not even have the most competitive car on the field, but will always give 110% and extract blood out of a stone to try and get that car competitive and get the best out of it at any given opportunity. And you know what? Us fans, we like scrappers. So it goes hand in hand with Fernando Alonso's popularity and appeal. Not to mention he's attractive and Spanish. It kind of helps. However, his experience and his longevity of success at the top puts him number 2 for me. And the only guy I have above him at number 1 has achieved even more in less amount of time. But you've got to look at his accomplishments. Like I said, 2-time world champion, 2-time runner-up, 4th all-time on the wins list with, I think, with 32. Alonso is one of the greatest this sport has ever had. If there was a Formula 1 Hall of Fame, he'd be in there right now. And you know what? When he could hang it up tomorrow and be one of the all-time greats. He is a very special driver and someone who's incredibly determined, incredibly passionate, and he is what you call a warrior when it comes to this sport. He is, in my eyes, the second best pound-for-pound driver in this sport and arguably one of the best drivers of the last decade. However, the guy I have at number 1 is just that little bit better, in my opinion anyway. You probably already know who it is. Okay, you've probably already figured out who my number 1 is, but in case you haven't quite figured it out yet, allow me to give you a quick recap of the top 10 so far. At 10, Paul di Resta. At 9, Romain Grosjean. At 8, Felipe Massa. 7, Nico Rosberg. 6, Mark Webber. 5, Jenson Button. 4, Kimi Raikkonen. 3, Lewis Hamilton. 2, Fernando Alonso. And now, okay, I'm going to look real bad declaring this in a Red Bull shirt, I'm not going to lie. My number 1 pound-for-pound driver in Formula 1 is... It's Michael Schumacher! Oh, sorry about that. It's actually Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, I know what you're all thinking. Yes, I've said it before in numerous videos. I'm a Red Bull and Sebastian Vettel fan, have been since his career started at BMW. So it's going to look a little bit bad knowing he's my favourite driver and me putting him number 1. I get that. But however, I just couldn't think of an argument to not put Vettel number 1. Because it was always, for me, either going to be Vettel or Alonso. And I looked back and I thought, Vettel has achieved almost as much, if not more than Fernando Alonso has over the course of his career in half the time. Vettel's career is, I think this is his 7th season, while this is Alonso's, I think, 13th season. Vettel's had just over 100 races, Alonso just over 200. And in that time, Vettel has won 3 World Championships, is only, I think, the 6th driver to win 30 Grand Prix, numerous fastest laps, I think 40 pole positions. And it's just, you can't not put him number 1 in terms of success. I understand that, in my opinion, there's drivers out there who are slightly faster, given the situation, like Lewis Hamilton. I think his raw ability is a little bit better than Sebastian Vettel's. But over a 20-race season, Vettel is getting better and better. He's getting more and more consistent. He's winning at places he didn't normally win at, like in Canada and like in Germany. Outside, this year's world title, outside of his retirement at Silverstone, he's not finished outside of the top 4. And yes, I understand that Adrian Newey designed his car, and his car is fast. But at the end of the day, it takes a better driver to bring it home. And people don't use this argument with guys like Mansell, Hill, and Hakkinen, who Newey designed their cars too. It's just the luck of the draw in this sport sometimes. Yes, the guy has luck, but then again, we all have luck, and you can't measure something like that. His success is off the charts, and it's only going to get better as long as he keeps improving and playing his cards right. In my opinion, Sebastian Vettel is the best driver in this sport today, because ultimately, he's the guy everybody wants to see get beaten. And if you reach that status, that's something I haven't seen in this sport since Michael Schumacher, and he's generally regarded as one of the top 2 or 3, if not the greatest driver of all time. And I think Sebastian Vettel is the only guy in the field who's got the potential to match his legendary career right now. Again, call me biased, I completely understand that. However, in my eyes, Vettel is number 1. Is it safe to come out now? Yeah? Alright. Quite frankly, if you've made it to the end of this video and not clicked off and stressed out over my opinions, I salute you, because trust me, that probably would have been the easy thing to do. But that was my top 10. With di Resta, Grosjean, Massa, Rosberg, Webber, Button, Raikkonen, Alonso. Sorry, actually, Hamilton, Alonso, Vettel. That's my top 10, and I think shout out to Chelsea Blue 002, I think was the first and possibly the only guy who actually got my top 5 exactly right. Impressive. Also, some interesting things I wanted to point out. A lot of you said Nico Hülkenberg should have made the top 10. Quite possible in hindsight. Also, a lot of people had Rosberg in their top fives, even as high as 3 in a couple of cases, which I thought was interesting. But overall, it's the wonderful thing about debate. Everybody's got an opinion, just like everybody's got a nose for the most part. So, you know, I'm sure you guys have already had your say, but if you want to have your say again, the comments are open. Feel free to talk to me about it. I love hearing you guys' opinions on everything. And hopefully, I hope you've enjoyed the last 30 minutes of content with me talking about my top 10 list. If you want to see me do more top 10s possibly and suggest maybe some top 10 topics to have in the future, absolutely go ahead and make suggestions in the comments. I'd even give you credit if I use your idea in the end. But in the meantime, I put a lot of effort into this video. If you could leave a like, that would be amazing. And until next time, I've been Harrison101, and thank you very much for watching. Sayonara.